Welcome back to my channel at The Movie Optimist, everybody, where I try to find the silver linings in even the worst of films. Today I'm going to talk about some things that were trending last week in the news in terms of the world of Hollywood that I thought was the most interesting. Now, the first topic I'd like to talk about is probably going to be the shortest because I don't really have that many opinions on it, but I thought it was interesting that the whole world is up in arms about it. And that's the reboot of Harry Potter coming from HBO, casting its Severus Snape. Now, the reason I find it so interesting is because Severus Snape is arguably one of the most important characters to Harry Potter. If you've seen the movies, then you know that all along he's always loved him, he's always supported him and had his back, and he had to kind of operate in the shadows and make Harry think that he did not like him so that Harry could ascend to being the chosen one that he is.
After all this time. Always.
But he always loved him all along. And without Snape, Harry would have never been able to defeat Voldemort at the end. And you don't realize until that last film just how important he actually was and how crucial he was to aiding Harry behind the scenes without him knowing all along. So I always knew that the casting of Snape in the HBO show was going to be one of the most important next to Harry, Hermione, Ron, and Dumbledore. And arguably Voldemort, I suppose. But again, I knew that this was going to be a very tall task. So they cast this man that quite frankly, I am not very familiar with. I have not seen a lot of his previous work. And his name is, and forgive me, I'm going to use my phone for this, Paapa Essiedu, and I'm sorry if, again, I butchered that name. I am not the best with pronouncing names, so bear with me on this one. And obviously, right off the jump, I'm just gonna rip the band-aid off. A lot of people are complaining that he is of African descent, he is a black actor, he is not white, and, you know, he's taking on the role after the late, great Alan Rickman, who is arguably one of the greatest villains of all time in Hans Gruber in Die Hard, but that's besides the point. He was a fantastic actor cast in that role, and he brought so much life and levity to it in a world that's otherwise very dark and grounded, and everybody loves him in that role. And one of the things is, no matter who they cast in this show, they're always going to be compared to the Warner Brothers movies counterparts.
Turn to page 394.
Whoever's going to be cast as Harry is going to be compared to Daniel Radcliffe. Whoever's cast as Hermione is going to be, you know, compared to Emma Watson, and so on and so forth. Everyone is going to be under a strict limelight from the fans saying, are you going to do as good of a job, if not better, than these people that we've spent, essentially, if you're a millennial, our whole lives growing up and watching? Like, you're now taking on that baton. Can you deliver? And that's a really good question and a very fair question to ask if you are a fan of these series. However, the fact that people are complaining that he's just black, I don't know. I'm not the type of person that gets mad at race swapping. I mean, if it serves the story and it's the right actor for the right role, then by all means, like, whatever. I don't care if you make Batman black, James Bond Chinese. I really don't care. It's just, does this actor embody the role and do it justice and make me believe in him? That, to me, at the end of the day, is what the most important thing is. So,
Thank you, Mr. Malfoy. That is the second time you have spoken out of turn, Miss Granger. Are you incapable of restraining yourself, or do you take pride in being an insufferable know-it-all?
the fact that there's a black actor now playing Snape, it's like, fine. He must have blown away the executives of this show for them to cast him, knowing that they were going to get this backlash from the fans, because we do live in this cancel culture. We do live in a culture where the online community is very loud and has the ability to kind of sway the way movies are made, a la Sonic, and the Sonic design here. Not a good look. So it was going to be an uphill battle for HBO and Warner Brothers making this casting announcement, but I have to believe that they did it because he really just exceeded all expectations and knocked it out of the park in his auditions. So what I'll say is this: if you're a fan of the Harry Potter series, you have to understand this. HBO knows how important this show is. They know that there is millions upon millions upon millions of fans that love these movies, that's their target audience, and they need to get you, the fans, on board. And they're not gonna make decisions like this knowing that it's gonna piss people off if they don't truly, in their heart of hearts, believe that this is the right decision. And at the end of the day, he will win you over. So I'm gonna give HBO the benefit of the doubt. I mean, they've done nothing but give us high quality content. They're like the gold standard of television. The showrunners of this show did Succession, which were nominated for Emmys every single year the show is on television. David Zaslav clearly wanted to get the show right, so he put impressive talent behind the scenes. And I would say just give this guy a chance. I mean, if you just don't like that he's black, then there's, nothing I could say here that's gonna change your mind. If you're the kind of person that, you're so rooted in the lore of the book, where in the book he's supposed to be this tall, white, ugly looking dude, then again, there's nothing I could say that's gonna change your mind until the movie comes out and he either changes your opinion or doesn't. But what I would say is try and have an open mind and trust that HBO is trying to make the best show possible, and they're trying to cast people that they believe are really gonna step up and portray these roles with justice the way that fans would love to see it done. So just take a breather. I mean, if the show comes out and he's awful, then I'll be right there with you with a pitchfork ready to burn HBO down to the ground. But until then, just try and have a little bit of an open mind. Be optimistic. It is HBO. They've given us great stuff. Again, I don't really have that much experience with this actor, but if they cast him for this, I'd say you can sleep good tonight knowing that he probably blew everyone away in those auditions. And coming up next, the Russo brothers have a new Netflix movie coming out with Millie Bobby Brown and Chris Pratt called The Electric State, which is an adaptation of a book that is really popular. Now, I, for one, am very excited for this movie. I love the Russo brothers. I love Millie Bobby Brown. I love Chris Pratt. I think that they're all great. I have not read the source material, but in watching the trailer, it looks like a fun, early Amblin Entertainment movie. And what I mean by Amblin Entertainment, for anyone that doesn't know, that's the studio that's made things like Jurassic Park, Indiana Jones, The Goonies. They make like these big, epic, swashbuckling adventures, which is my favorite genre of movie. Anytime a group of people has to go on an adventure to stop a threat or uncover a secret or something like that. I love tomb raiding, pirate ships, going on an island battling dinosaurs, anything that's just larger than life. So when I saw the trailer for this and it has Star-Lord in it, and Eleven from Stranger Things, and is being directed by the same people that did Avengers Endgame, Avengers Infinity War, Captain America Civil War, Captain America Winter Soldier. I like The Gray Man, so that's just another notch in the hat for me. I know a lot of people don't like that movie, but I really do enjoy it a lot, actually. I watched the trailer for this, and I was really excited to watch it. Now, a couple days ago, the early reviews came out for this movie, and it is not looking good. This movie has an abysmal Rotten Tomatoes score, and for most people, they look at this. I know a buddy of mine looked at this and was like, oh, the Russo brothers suck. They can't do anything outside of Avengers. I don't let Rotten Tomatoes sway my opinion. Not for nothing, but a lot of people don't even know how Rotten Tomatoes works. Everyone thinks that Rotten Tomatoes, like if you go on there and you see that a movie has like a 40%, people think that like on average, people are giving this movie a 4 out of 10. No, that means if it's 40% on Rotten Tomatoes, that means that out of 100 people, 40 people liked it and 60 people did not. I've seen movies that had like a 9% on Rotten Tomatoes that I didn't love, but I didn't hate the movie, so I would have fallen into that 8% or 9% region of reviewers. And I don't like to let reviews sway me because there are a lot of movies that I've watched that I wouldn't have if I relied on the tomato score on Rotten Tomatoes. So I like to go into movies and make my own opinions and not let others sway me. I am the movie optimist. I find the silver linings in even the worst of films. So even if a story is bad, I can still look at a film and go, but the action was great and the comedy worked. Or maybe the story is great, but the action's terrible, and I can still appreciate it on a storytelling level. Or if the movie's just so bad all around, maybe I'll at least like the color grading in it, or the pacing of the editing, or the soundtrack. They brought in a cool 80s retro soundtrack. I go into movies, no matter how bad they are, always looking for the silver lining. What is here that I could take away enjoying, that I could talk to all of you about? And really the point I'm trying to make here is like, yeah, it has a low score on Rotten Tomatoes, but I'm still really excited to see this movie. I mean, the Russo brothers only ever make movies that seem like they want to entertain us, and I have to give them the benefit of the doubt. They made arguably one of the greatest science fiction superhero movies of all time, so I'm always going to show up to support them. Sometimes they're going to swing and they're going to miss, but I'll always be there to support them. Now, there's an entirely different topic that I want to touch on quickly here regarding the Russo brothers, and that is that it is now factually true that outside of the MCU, the Russo brothers have not not made anything that is considered like a renowned success critically or financially. I mean, at least in terms of the Rotten Tomato meter, because outside of the Avengers movies, all of their movies are negative. They have a green tomato on Rotten Tomatoes, and a lot of people are kind of starting to wonder if the Russo brothers aren't actually that great of filmmakers. Because before Avengers, they did things like You, Me, and Dupree, which not a lot of people liked, and then after that, they did a movie with Tom Holland called Cherry, which not a lot of people liked. They did a movie called 21 Bridges with Chadwick Boseman that not a lot of people liked. They did The Gray Man that not a lot of people liked. They have the Extraction movies that they produced, but they didn't really direct that, so I won't count that. And a lot of people are confused and think that they have a lot to do with Everything Everywhere All at Once. They're producers on that film, but they don't really have a lot to do with it, so I'm not really going to count that. And there might be like one or two more movies that they came out with that I'm not remembering, but I could easily say they weren't received well. So that raises the question, are the Russo brothers good directors, or are they only good when working under the tight restraints of Kevin Feige? And as much as I'm excited for The Electric State, I have to say that, yeah, it seems like the Russo brothers are not good when they're in charge of creating the story. They're just good at taking a story that somebody else has and bringing it to life. And that's not to say that they're bad all around. Like, even in the movies that aren't that good, because of a story standpoint or a pacing standpoint, you always like the characters you're watching. They're always charismatic and they have good relationships with the other people in the movies. Like, the Russo brothers know how to make you care about characters and they know how to do good character development. It just doesn't seem like they know how to bring an entire ensemble together and tell one coherent, really crowd-pleasing story without Kevin Feige behind him like, don't do that, do this instead. And I think it's really smart that they're going back to Marvel to kind of get out of that negative limelight of these people aren't that good unless they're working in a Marvel project. I think that once Doomsday and Secret Wars comes out, if those movies are really successful, then the Russo brothers will have a chance to go back out and try and go on their own again. But I really think they need to take what they learned from their critical failures of the movies they've made and apply that moving forward after Avengers and try and figure out what they're doing wrong and fix it, because after Avengers, Doomsday, and Secret Wars, they're only going to have that one last shot to go out and impress the world with something outside of Marvel. And if they fail, I'm not saying the Russo brothers are never going to make a movie again, but the chances of them getting the budget from a studio to make something like an Electric State is going to diminish greatly, and they're going to be stuck making more things like You, Me, and Dupree. So again, I am excited for The Electric State. Maybe I'll be in that small minority of people that just really enjoys it, and that'll be what it is. I'm also excited to see their Avengers movies. I see a lot of people online saying like, oh, those movies are gonna suck. The Russo brothers, they lost it. They haven't made a good movie in years. And again, guys, you have to understand, something happens when the Russo brothers go into Marvel, they go into Disney, and like just magic comes alive around them. I've said this in one of my other reviews. I'm sure at Marvel headquarters there's a plaque somewhere that just has a picture of the Russo brothers and it says world's best employees, because they made the best MCU movies. And I have no doubt they're gonna step back in, team up with Kevin Feige again, team up with the writer of Avengers Endgame, and make something really special in Doomsday and Secret Wars. I don't think anyone has any cause to believe they're going to give a shit, because they've already done this. This is their wheelhouse. They are comfortable here. They know what works and what doesn't. They know what us, the people, want, and they're gonna deliver. I have absolutely no doubt. Now, would I put $100 on it? No, but I don't make that much money at my job. But I would put $20 on it, that it's a safe bet to go to sleep tonight knowing that the Avengers are in good hands. I wouldn't worry too much about it. I'm sure they're gonna give us something epic, heartfelt, emotional, and just an overall good time. And for those of you disappointed about the reviews for The Electric State, I implore you, don't look at Rotten Tomatoes. Make your own opinions, because you never know, you might surprise yourself and find yourself in the minority, in the lower margin of people that actually enjoyed the movie. Just because 90% of the world didn't like it, maybe you will, and that should be enough, because all art is subjective and we're not all gonna like the same things. And coming up next, I talked about this last week a little bit, how Jonathan Nolan should get the reins given to him by Amazon to make a James Bond movie, because the Nolans are very rooted in James Bond. They are big fans of it. Well, apparently, rumor has it, Amazon's first choice to make a James Bond film is Christopher Nolan. And yeah, why wouldn't you want that? He's arguably one of the biggest directors on the planet right now. He's in the Mount Rushmore of movie directors. He is an all-time iconic, great visionary. He is my personal favorite director on the planet. He loves his genre, but he loves to bend genre in these science fiction ways, a la my favorite movie, Inception. He likes to play with time, like in movies like Dunkirk and Inception and Tenet, and he always just does something really interesting. Like, you're not just getting a Christopher Nolan heist movie, you're getting a heist movie where they're going inside people's dreams within their dreams, and they're planting an idea, and it's this big, elaborate, complex thing, and then there's a train going through the city street where there's no tracks, and it's just crazy. And he gave me The Dark Knight, which is my favorite Batman movie of all time, and my favorite superhero movie of all time. Now, the fact that they want him to do a James Bond movie is kind of rooted in the fact that he approached the Broccoli's to do one, but the problem was, at the time, he only wanted to make one, and he wanted final say on the end result, and you just don't get that in the Broccoli household. You don't get final say on James Bond. They do. So he kind of stepped away because he's the kind of person where he doesn't want to be hamstrung. He doesn't want to have his hands restrained by the Broccoli's in terms of how much he could be creative. So he walked away to go off and do The Odyssey, and rightfully so. I mean, everybody on the planet and their mother is excited to see that film. But I understand Amazon pretty much saying, like, we'll wait for you to make this, because James Bond is in a state right now where, look, at the end of the day, I love James Bond, but I'm not going to shy away from the fact that he is a misogynistic, womanizing asshole that also just happens to save the world all the time and do it looking good in a suit and a Walter PPK. But you kind of need to do something to change up the Bond formula, because how do you have Bond in this current day and age? I really don't think you do. I mean, I'm sure somewhere out there is a director and a filmmaker that has a good story that takes place in the year 2025. Listen, I'm sure there's a director and a writer out there that has a good idea for a James Bond film in the future where he's using a flying car. I'm not saying there isn't, and would that be cool to see one day? Fuck yeah. But for the sake of this conversation, I think, at least for me, the thing that I love about James Bond is the charismatic, swashbuckling adventure he goes on and the gadgets. And what would be really fun and a way to breathe new life into James Bond and kind of put it in an era that you're not like, oh, well, there's cameras everywhere and there's cell phones, and how does a spy exist in this world? And that's do exactly what Christopher Nolan wanted to do and make a period piece James Bond film where he's like in the 1940s. You could have all these crazy cool gadgets. You don't have to worry about modern day technology. You could bring it back to all the really cool old school gadgets like the exploding toothpaste, which was from Mission Impossible, I believe. I might be mixing up my spies. But anyway, it just allows you to kind of do something that you haven't seen in a James Bond film ever, really. Even like going back to one of the first ones that took place in like the 60s, like you never really got to see him back in that olden era before a lot of technology existed. And I think it would be really cool for Nolan to go and do a period piece James Bond film. Not only will it feel fresh because of the time setting, but you have the greatest director on the planet making it. Now, like I said before, Nolan expressed to the Broccoli's that he only wanted to make one movie, and I think that's okay. I think if he comes in and he makes the first one for Amazon and sets the tone and gets the actor and sets the world up, does a little bit of world building in it, then after the first one, he can go off to make whatever movie he wants to make about a floating toaster in space, and his brother could step in and make a sequel, or any other director could come in and just make the sequel again, because Nolan already created the world. He already cast it. He already set the tone of it. So now somebody just needs to come in and further that story. They're not creating this entire world out of nothing, and it'll still very much be a Nolan-like film because they're just using the world that he already created. So I don't think it's a bad thing that he only wants to do one, and I think it is a great idea that Amazon waits for him to finish The Odyssey and then just hands him James Bond on a silver platter, wipes their hands and goes, we're not even going to think twice. Do what you're going to do. We're not going to second guess you. We're not going to question you. We're not going to put restraints on you. You want to film it over the course of 13 years? You film it over the course of 13 years, Chris. We don't care. And they're going to let him do whatever he wants. And I think that that's really a good thing. Everyone is so afraid, including me, of what Amazon is going to do to James Bond, how they could potentially butcher it and try and mass produce James Bond-like content where we have 46 different TV shows, 14 movies of characters we don't give a shit about, and James Bond just sucks. Get Christopher Nolan to come in. He's literally the safest bet Amazon could pick. It's the guy that grew up loving James Bond that is now the greatest director working today, and have him make this movie, and I think that will calm a lot of people down and make it feel like James Bond is in good hands. And lastly, last week, Disney Plus dropped the first 2 episodes of Daredevil Born Again, and I watched them both back to back, and I thought about it for a couple days. I was going to do my review pretty quickly because I wanted to keep up with the rest of the world of movie reviewers. I didn't want to be too late and then no one watched it, but I really wanted to think about it because I had some pretty strong emotions after watching those first 2 episodes. And I think I've been able to get all my thoughts in order and really explain to you how I felt about this show. Now, a couple years ago when they first announced that this was coming out, it was originally going to be like a 20 or 30 episode TV show, and it was going to have nothing to do with Daredevil from the Netflix series. It was going to be be the same actor, but a multiversal version where, yes, it's the same actor playing him, but this Daredevil went through his own stuff. It's not the same stuff from Netflix. And after filming the first like 10 or 15 episodes, Kevin Feige kind of came in and was like, this is ass. We need to cancel this. And look, we already have this built-in fan base of people that absolutely love the Netflix show. Let's just continue it. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. So that's essentially what they did. They just gave us a continuation of that Daredevil, and we kind of pick up right where they leave off. So right off the jump, I'm gonna sit here and tell you, I liked it. In a thumbs up or thumbs down world, I give this show a thumbs up. It has a fresh Rotten Tomatoes from me. But I did have some problems with it, and it was initially hard for me to digest because it did feel a lot different. Maybe not so much in tone, but in what they were presenting us from Daredevil himself. And I'll start off with the fact that, look, in the Netflix show, Daredevil was very grounded. He didn't have like super agilities, superpowers. He was kind of just a guy that was blind and was able to use this like echolocation that he kind of formed after that accident he got in to help aid him in fighting crime in Hell's Kitchen. But here he straight up has like magical powers where he's literally defying the laws of physics in the way he moves, the way he jumps up buildings, down buildings, somersaults all over the place. They have him using his like grappling batons now to like swing around like he's Batman. And I just think it all looks so goofy, and maybe it would be better if it was like better CGI, but this is a TV show, so it's not getting Captain America Winter Soldier budget. It's getting a TV budget. It just looks goofy. It doesn't look good. I commend the creators for wanting to do a one-take fight scene in the very first episode of this between Daredevil and Bullseye, because those were the highlights of the Netflix shows for me. Anytime you got to that episode where there was that one-take fight scene throughout the hallway, I was in love watching that stuff, and I was excited to see that they wanted to attempt that here and give us, the fans of the Netflix show, more of that. But it was done really bad, and it was done predominantly with CGI, and it's just lazy and it's ugly. I know that they're not actually there doing it. And then when they are there, the extras that they had in the background, you could see that like a lot of the time while things were going on, they were just sitting there waiting for their mark. Nothing was fluid about that fight scene to me. I noticed all of the extras on the sides kind of just waiting to like jump into frame. I noticed that the battle itself was predominantly CGI. Like, you're not actually watching people fight. You're just watching like a PlayStation 2 cutscene, and I thought it was lazy, uninspired, and ugly. And it's like, if you're gonna do it, just take the fucking time and sit there and train for 6 months to have this awesome one-take fight scene inside of a restaurant, then through a hallway, up a flight of stairs, and onto a roof. Netflix would have actually filmed that, and here, again, they just took the lazy, uninspired approach. So initially, starting off the bat with this show, I didn't like it. I'm watching that, I'm like, oh, they kind of ruined this. But then the show saves itself after that, because then it gets into the heart of the story, and that's when it started to feel very much so in line with the stuff that we were getting on Netflix. This show is very serious. It takes the lawyer aspect of Matt Murdock very seriously, and you see that he wants to be a good lawyer. So you do get a lot more of that this time around, where he is going in and out of court cases and talking to people that are being wrongfully accused of things. And on that aspect, I really like it. Now, where again, the show takes a shift from me that I didn't like is the thing I hate the absolute fucking most in all superhero things, and I don't care how much the story justifies it, I don't care how much you like it, I don't care how much Kevin Feige, the God Emperor Supreme of Marvel, likes it. The reluctant hero is a fucking awful superhero trope. I hate it. I hate when Batman in The Dark Knight Rises decides he doesn't want to be Batman anymore. I hate when Spider-Man in Spider-Man 2 decides he no longer wants to be Spider-Man anymore, and I get it. He's struggling, having a normal life, being Spider-Man, being a boyfriend, being a son, being a nephew, working at the Daily Bugle, and all this stuff, and it's a lot for him, but I don't really care. I just don't like it. I don't like when superheroes are like, we're done being a superhero. I'm so fucking sick of that trope, and I hate when people do it, and I just think it's lazy. It's just a lazy way to get out of having to do any cool superhero shit. Maybe they did it for budgetary reasons, to have a couple episodes where Matt's just being Matt, and they don't need to green screen everything, and they could have it kind of grounded, and I just absolutely fucking hate it. If he doesn't don the suit by the end of episode 3, I'm gonna be really upset, because at the end of the day, I go to a steakhouse for steak. I go to the beach to go in the water. I show up to a Batman movie because I want to see Batman. I want the cape, the cowl, the stupid ears, the utility belt. I show up to Iron Man 3 because I want to see fucking Iron Man blasting fools out of the sky with his hand cannons or whatever the hell you call those things. I don't want to stare at Tony Stark for 2 hours. I do not want to watch Matt Murdock solve cases in court for the next 5 hours of this show. I want to see him as the devil in his costume beating the pulp out of bad guys and Wilson Fisk. That is what I'm showing up to a Daredevil show to watch. I don't want to see Matt Murdock, the lawyer, the show. I want to see Daredevil. I want to see his fucking costume. So again, I did say in the beginning of this that I like the show, and that's because the storytelling that they are telling here is so good that I am willing to forgive the fact that they decided to make him do the ridiculous, overused, lazy, uninspired, reluctant hero trope. But it seems that by the end of episode 2, he's finally going to get back to it. So hopefully by the end of episode 3, they get into it. But that being said, that out of the way, the fact that I hate that trope, overall, the storytelling that they're doing here is incredible. I mean, Wilson Fisk goes from being this really, really, really bad guy to wanting to run for mayor for the city because he truly believes in his heart of heart that he can make a difference given his background and his experiences. And I love the scene in the diner with Matt where he's like, look, if you say that you're a changed man, I believe you. But if you step out of line, I'll be there. I thought that was really powerful, and that the heart of the show between Matt and Wilson Fisk is what's carrying this show across the finish line for me. I think that Wilson Fisk, the guy that plays him, his name is escaping me right now, but he is such an incredible actor and he was born to play this role. Don't get me wrong. I think that Thanos is one of the best MCU villains we've ever had next to Loki and Killmonger, but Wilson Fisk, chef's kiss. He really is such a terrifying villain because he is human. He is very grounded in our world. He is not this alien from space. He is the guy next door that we all know. And the fact that he isn't a more predominant villain across the entirety of the MCU is a total shame, but who knows? Maybe he will be after the events of this show. All I know is I'm really excited to see where this show goes because, as we all know, if you've watched it and you've finished episode 2, Wilson Fisk, yes, maybe a changed man, but he's still resorting to some old school ways of getting people to do what he wants, and it's good to see that he still has that edge in him and he hasn't gotten totally soft. And I really like all the other characters. I like the new love interest they set up for Matt. The Punisher is coming back, so who's not going to get excited about that? And Muse, the villain of this show, is such a badass in the comics. He is so gnarly and violent and just hateful that I'm really excited to see that brought to life in live action, and I'm excited to see Matt Murdock and him throw down. So overall, at the end of the day, I liked this show. I just really wish they didn't do the stupid trope of the reluctant hero not wanting to be the hero anymore. I hope that superhero movies never do that ever again. You have a responsibility. You have a gift that 99% of the planet doesn't have. Shut the fuck up, put the costume on, and entertain me and the rest of the fans. I don't care about your crybaby bullshit. Not here to see Matt Murdock on a date. I'm here to see Matt Murdock in his costume beating the shit out of people. And maybe that is a super unpopular opinion. I know a lot of people that love Iron Man 3. I know a lot of people that love The Dark Knight Rises. I know a lot of people that love that portion of Spider-Man 2 where he gives up the costume and him kind of finding himself again. I mean, arguably one of the best moments of that movie is when Aunt May gives him the speech about how everybody needs a hero. One of my favorite parts of the movie. But yeah, I really don't like it. I'm in the minority there. I am. I get it. But all art is subjective, and this is just how I view it in the superhero genre. I want to see the costumes, not the man or the woman underneath. I'm sure all of you guys have a lot to talk about this and say in the comments down below. If you do, please let's talk about it. Maybe you think I'm crazy. Maybe you love that trope of the superhero not wanting to be it anymore because it's interfering with their social life. Anyway, guys, if you like this stuff, please give me a like and a subscribe. And again, let's talk about it down below in the comments. I'd love to have a conversation about it with you guys. And as always, guys, I hope you have a great rest of your week, and I'll catch you next time.